Hello, this is Father Rich. I'm here on the second floor of the Rectory at Our Lady of Peace. Here before a newly hung picture that we were given that reminds me of Rome and art, which is part of what the masterpiece we're about to discuss. But this is not it, but it's one of Raphael's masterpieces. It's in the Raphael rooms in the papal apartments in the Vatican City, the Vatican Museum, as you're getting closer to the Sistine Chapel. And part of the Renaissance and movement. So it is a great masterpiece of Rome. But the next one we're discussing, number 54, is a movie. And it's called Rome Open City. I actually just watched it this week. Film from 1946. I had never heard of it before. It was directed by Roberto Rossellini. And what's unique about it, they say that it opened up this chapter or this new phase in cinema in Italy, or really in the world, called neorealism. Rossellini wanted to go into Rome right after the occupation by the Nazis in the end of the World War II and film right in the city, which had never really been done before. All movies were filmed in movie studios. They were artificial, they were built. So part of that realism wanted to film right there, wanted to show the destruction of World War II and really the impact of that occupation by the Nazis, and really the harsh, evil ways that they ruled Rome. Even though it was called an open city, that's where the movie gets its title, because it was considered open, and for that reason was not going to be bombed, or it had some special status. But yet, in reality, it was still kind of being held with a tight grip by the Nazis and run by them. And so the movie actually depicts the liberation, the movement to fight against that occupation. And some of the main characters are a communist Italian communist who's trying to lead that liberation, a Roman Catholic priest who's one of the heroes, and as well as some of the other liberation people. And to the point where they get captured, and several of the characters actually get killed. So in the midst of this evil and this darkness, particularly, they talk about the priest, and this is is in there, is kind of one of the heroes. And this is what the chapter says. Through the character of this heroic priest, the film offers a hope deeper than any sort of shallow optimism, a hope rooted in the belief that there are realities beyond this life that can be a reservoir for strength and courage. So it definitely wanted to depict the rawness of the war in a real way, but it also wanted to give hope in the midst of that, and to show that the spirit triumphed over the body, so to speak. Even some of the lines of the movie say that. The priest says that at one point. So Rossellini was considered kind of the father of this Italian neorealism that really expanded to the whole world into the cinematic history. And his desire, so he would use sometimes amateur actors that were. He got the prisoners of war of the Germans to actually play the German parts, and so you saw the true, ethnic connections. And so, very real, although not the kind of film, it's kind of not the purest kind of filming. And he wanted to show the imperfections of the film and the joltiness of the filming sometimes. They say that it was a legendary making of the movie because he had such limited financial and film resources that he had to get the film on the black market sometimes. They had to piece it together with, literally tape and pins and stuff. So all part of that realism, but a new way of kind of appreciating it and kind of presenting things in a raw way. So that, which has been a theme of many of these masterpieces, this realism and making things real. So it was set in 1944, even though it was filmed in 1945 and then released, I think, in 1946. So it was set in the time in which the Nazis occupied Rome, that the Allies were making their way up the Italian peninsula, before they would be liberated by the Americans that were coming from the south. So Rome, open city. So kind of the irony of the, supposedly open but yet enslaved, and how that could be spiritually. Interestingly, that Rossellini had these films, and this wasn't the only one, of major spiritual focus and faith focus, but yet he was someone who was kind of frustratingly not able to you're not identify what he was. Everything his movies suggest he probably was a devout Catholic, but yet when he would be asked, he would say he was kind of a Christian agnostic, not sure what he really believed. But all his films were just kind of doused in spirituality and faith. So he was born in the early 1900s, did his first documentary in 1937, started moving into feature films soon after that, one of which was Rome Open City. And that's where he started to get, some critical acclaim and started becoming more well-known. Ingrid Bergman at some point said she wanted to work with him because she appreciated his films. So there was some work there. None of the films were really financially successful, but continued this kind of, moving themes and messages that the movies would give. One of which actually was called Europe 51, in which Rossellini tried to show that if everybody lived like St. Francis, the impact that could have on our world. And I think Ingrid Bergman played the kind of saintly character who has this, is trying to live this out in the modern era, and she ends up in a lunatic asylum, a home for those with mental illness, because the world can't handle this kind of radical way she's trying to live out the gospel. So there are some others. He did a movie called The Flowers of St. Francis in 1950. Before that, Europe 51. Then earlier than that, did Germany Year Zero, which was I think part of the trilogy that Rome Open City was part of. Voyage to Italy, 1954. Then moved into some historical films in Italian. So he moved kind of into TV movies after doing some feature films, some of which, and they had very many church-related themes. Augustine, 1972. Blaise Pascal, 1972. A miniseries on the Acts of the Apostles, 1969. And then his last film was a biblically faithful retelling of the life of Christ, which was called The Messiah. I think it came out in like 1976. Kind of starting that whole genre of Jesus of Nazareth and others that did movies, obviously, then leading up to The Chosen, which is going on right now, which again I recommend you watch if you haven't. So he really, had faith, just was kind of oozed from his movies, even though he struggled with identifying his own kind of dogma. And certainly part of it was a typical kind of struggled with the institutional church, but believed in the moral and basis of Christianity and what it stood for. So certainly reinforced that. So Rome Open City, 1945-46 film, Roberto Rossellini. Our next masterpiece will be another film. It's a Wonderful Life, probably one that most people are familiar with. 1946 by Frank Capra. So hope you'll join me for that. Have a great day and God bless.